Welcome, Rotarians and guests, to today's meeting of the Rotary Club of Tulsa. As we begin Rotary International's featured month on basic education and literacy, I think today's program is going to be a fantastic program. We have a great panel here. I think everybody is going to learn a lot today. Let's begin our program today with Invocation from Joe Moore, Song and Pledge from Sheree Gardner, and guest introductions from Matt Hancock.
Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, our Creator and Sustainer, thank you for this day and for this opportunity to gather. Bless each person in this room and keep everyone here safe and well. Help us to stay focused on the objectives we have for the world: peace, tranquility, freedom from hunger and oppression, and the freedom to choose our own destinies. Grant us an awareness of the needs of those around us and help us to best meet those needs using our four-way test as our guide. Thank you for the opportunity and for the privilege of serving others above self. Amen.
Okay, we're going to start with the song Oklahoma. Oh, sorry. Sorry. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be lip syncing. So whoever is the singer of the group, if you would like to start us off, that would be awesome. Thank you. That was a great introduction. I thought that was awesome. I thought. Oklahoma, where the winds are swinging and the birds, where the wind is deep, it's just sweet and the wind comes up. Thank you, everybody. You did awesome. Now for the pledge. Now for the pledge that I can do. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Rotarians. We've got two guests with us that are guests of our speakers here. If you would, hold your applause till the end here. We've got Courtney Rotabush, if you'd stand. Thank you. And Sandy Tilkin, if you would stand as well. Thank you. And then we have some guests here of our Rotarians. We have a prospective member, Miss Shelley Holmes, with Brenda Melicon. Thank you. Darcy Morgan with Joe Morgan, says boyfriend. Miss Lori Long with Brian Jackson from Junior Achievement. Melissa Bryce with John Waldron. Chase Mowry with Mr. Jesse Gutierrez. Thank you. Austin Connors with DJ and Phil Viles. Amanda Fisher with Brian Boulevard, as well as Zoe Hell. And what I believe is a prospective member back from last week, Jim Brickford with Crichton. Thank you very much. Give these guys a round of applause.
Welcome to our guests today. I can say I'm only slightly disappointed that I heard very few states at the end of the state song, so that's just me. President Tiffany spoke often about the Rotary magazine, which all of you should receive in the mail as a benefit of membership in our club. I wholeheartedly agree, and I hope that everybody will look into those magazines and learn about what our club does at an international level to help do good works around the globe. In conjunction with today's program, I wanted to share an inspiring story that I read last night in this month's edition. It features a teacher, Sophie Bamwoyeraki. I practiced that a lot, by the way. She's the past president of the Rotary Club of Kasangati, Uganda. Her initiative as president of her club back in 2016 was to build classrooms in her local village. Her reasoning was that a child had recently passed away doing a 4-mile walk to the closest school in her area. She says that they built a single classroom during her tenure, and during her tenure as president, and that every president since has accomplished a new classroom building in their village. She says that the reason to do this was because children should not have to walk so far to obtain a basic education. She now serves as Rotary Action Group. She serves the Rotary Action Group at the international level for basic education and literacy as its technical officer and as an advisor. Literacy, she says, is her passion, which she says can preserve a community's history and can decide its future. As the students she's helped serve grow up and become parents themselves, she says the difference is noticeable. Her idea is that high literacy rates in adults can lead to high literacy rates amongst the children. She says, quote, "If everyone can read and write, they can encourage the coming generation to read and write. It can affect their ability to grow their community." Today's program is going to provide some incredible insight on this type of work going on right here in our city, in Tulsa. So with that, I'd like to introduce to you our Rotarian of the Day and our panel moderator, John Croissant. John is school board member for Tulsa Public Schools, District 5. He was born and raised in Tulsa. He attended Jenks Public High School and later received his degree in political science from the University of Tulsa. After completing a pre-law certificate and secondary education requirements, John decided to focus his career on education. With more than a decade in the classroom, John has seen firsthand the effects of underfunded schools on both students and in the community. After completing his teaching certification, John moved to Louisiana and began his career in public schools in the New Orleans metro area. John and his wife Deborah returned to Tulsa after Hurricane Katrina, and John became a coach and teacher at Edison Prep. He taught 6th grade geography and was head of the girls' soccer team for 12 years. Before retiring in 2018, he then opened his own insurance agency. Please welcome our Rotarian of the Day, John Croissant.
All right, and thank you, Daniel, for introducing me today. Again, this is near and dear to my heart. What Daniel didn't say is in 2020, I ran to represent many Tulsans in Midtown and District 5 on the Tulsa School Board, and so today I'm the Vice President of TPS and their Board of Education, and I'm able to help 34,000 students every single day make sure they're getting the best education we can possibly give them, represent all Tulsans, our businesses, our families, our students, just to make sure that we have a city that is going to be inviting for families to want to live here. And if we do that, if we take care of our kids, I know that a lot of other things work themselves out, for sure. And today, I get the opportunity to get to introduce to you 4 amazing speakers, and we're going to have a little bit of a discussion over literacy and some of both the struggles that we're seeing with a lot of our young students that we're seeing today from the early childhood programs all the way up through our secondary schools, but we're also going to see some of the successes that are happening because of the hard work of not just Tulsa Public Schools, not just our urban, our suburban, our private schools, charter schools, homeschooling, but from all of the different organizations that are working together to make sure that every kid has the opportunity to read, no matter what their learning ability is, no matter where they come from, what their first language is, no matter what barriers they have. We have, as a society, as Tulsans, the responsibility to make sure that all of our kids have the opportunity to be able to read and be successful. So today, I'm really excited to introduce our panel. I guess Daniel ran off, so I didn't get my introductory here, but I'll go ahead and, oh, yep. Oh, they're on the table, okay. Will you grab that? Thank you. Okay, so first off, let me introduce our amazing panel. Enough about me. Thank you. Yep. So we'll start off with, from our Tulsa Library System, Mandy Durham. And we've got from CAP Tulsa, we've got Karen. Let's see here. They didn't even give me stuff on the back. Okay. Oh, here we go. All right. So, all right. And I don't want to make a mistake on this. So we've got Karen from CAP Tulsa, which is our early childhood programs. Then we've got Kelly Kane from Tulsa Public Schools, who does early childhood education for TPS. And then Olivia Martin with Reading Partners, who I'm a big fan of. And they work with a lot of our TPS students with volunteers in our classroom. So with that, we've got mics for everybody. So I guess what we'll do is we're going to start off with a few questions, and I'll let whoever wants to answer go ahead and kind of say what they want to say as far as on literacy. So let's start off. Let's start off with number one. What are some of the issues facing students today that can impact reading proficiency? So Kelly, do you want to start with that for us?
Yes,
okay.
I think so. I think there's lots of factors that are impacting our kids right now. One of the big things is access to high-quality reading materials. We know that for children of all ages and adults, that a big part of learning to read is getting lots of opportunities to practice. It's why libraries are so important. It's why programs like Reach Out and Read and Imagination Library that are working to put books in the hands of our youngest kids are so important. Books and barbershops, which is we can hear more about in a minute. All of those programs are really important because we need our kids to actually have access to materials. I think another thing that stands out is our kids' ability to pay attention and have stamina. So what that means is when kids are reading, reading is hard. One of the things we know from the science of reading is that the research shows that reading is not just a natural process that you learn. It is something that has to be taught in a really systematic way. And our brain science tells us that kids can learn, but they need to be taught in that specific way, and it's challenging. You know, when we think about the English language, like there's lots of rules that don't make sense that we have to learn in order to read fluently. And so kids need to be able to both pay attention and have the stamina and the grit to persist when it gets challenging. And that's something I think we've seen, and some of it's about things like kids being on devices. There's lots of other factors, but that's something we see a lot as a challenge, really having to work with our kids to help them to develop those social emotional skills so that they can persist through the challenging experience of learning to read.
All right. And then Karen, did you want to add something to that? From the early childhood perspective?
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's very important to distinguish between learning to read and based on the age of the child we're talking about. And at CAP Tulsa, we have 10 schools across the metro area. We serve children 6 weeks up to 5 years old. So we are serving in the early learning space. And so when we talk about early literacy, it's really not what you might think of as teaching reading and writing. It's really about laying the foundation of the skills that are necessary for later school success. So at Cap Tulsa, we focus in our classrooms on things like rhyming and vocabulary and print concepts and familiarity with books. We even teach kids, this is the front cover, this is the back cover, this is the spine, here's the author, here's the illustrator. We teach them to be fluent in handling a book, reading a book, and sharing books. And then also, of course, alphabet knowledge and things like that. But it's not skill and drill, it's not flashcards and things like that when you're dealing with very young children, as I'm sure many of you know. So I think it's very important to establish that. And moreover, our kids are about 40% are Hispanic, and a third speak Spanish at home as their primary language. So we're also very focused on what we call dual language learners, because our littles are learning both their home language and English at the same time. In addition to most of the children being, I'm talking about being Spanish speakers, we also have a large number of children who are Burmese, they're Zomi, and they are speaking Zopao language. And also, we serve 25 Afghan families from the refugee families who came to Tulsa 2 years ago now, right? So we have a variety of language needs in the classrooms and that are supported with all of the ways that I just spoke about in developing early literacy skills, preparing to learn to read.
Yeah, I've got 3 Afghani refugees on my soccer team, and so I had to ask for Farsi because they have to do a safe sport deal for just to play soccer. And so I asked for some interpretation for it. So again, it's important if you don't have the language, whether you're coming in an early childhood or you're in high school. It's a lot harder for a student, especially that's new to the United States, that hasn't spoke the language before, to catch up with their peers and to be proficient in English like their peers are within a year or 2 years. But there's a lot of things we're doing that are giving that ability to speak 2 languages. We call it a superpower in TPS because, you know, if our kids are in a program for 4 or 5 years, we're seeing that the language proficiency is actually greater than a lot of their peers. If they're able to be a part of being a multilingual learner and be a part of our ELL programs. So. Mandy, did you have anything from the library's perspective? You're working with the whole community. So it's not just, when we think about proficiency and reading, we think about sometimes just our young people, but reading is for everyone. So is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yes, there's a few things I would like to add. Thank you. And just to kind of contextualize what I do, I manage the adult literacy program for the Tulsa City County Library. However, our lower age cutoff is currently 16. And so we work with a very, very wide range of folks. And, you know, we often also wind up getting to know their families. Their kids will come, you know, along with them. And so, you know, at the same time, we're working with these adults who have come to us for help and support with reading, writing, conversational English, you know, learning the language, any number of things. We're also, you know, trying to look at it as really like a whole person issue and making sure that that we're encouraging as a family, you know, for them to read and participate in the library. I'm sure that we have heard the statement about, you know, the #1 predictor of a child's future academic success being a mother's literacy levels. That's the number one factor when it comes to our kids and whether they will be successful in the future. In addition to working for the literacy program, we share an office with our outreach services department. And that was actually where I've spent most of my library career. Outreach operates the bookmobile. I don't know if anybody's seen the bookmobile. It's kind of hard to miss. It's bright green. It's got cartoons on the side. We also have something called the Reading Roadshow, which is kind of a smaller vehicle. But both of those vehicles, you know, talking about access, essentially the whole focus of that outreach services department and what they do is they are really trying to be strategic about providing library access and information access to those communities and those individuals who have some kind of barrier, whether that's geographic location or poverty or, lack of access to transportation. They're very much focused on making sure that we are able to, get the books in the hands of the kids and the families who might not be able to make it to the library on their own. And then I would like to mention something that has kind of come into a lot of our conversations recently as far as barriers. I would say trauma is a big one. We've had a lot of discussions around trauma and the way that it can interfere with learning, language acquisition, retention. And so that is definitely something that we're discussing, amongst library staff. And then with our literacy tutors, we're also trying to start some of those conversations and think about ways that, there's so many experiences that the people we're working with are having that we might not be seeing, but it's impossible to separate those things out from literacy and learning. And so, for us to kind of build an awareness of some of the struggles that our community is facing, I think that we can better serve them.
And, from what I've seen over my time too, is that as a teacher, is that schools, libraries, they're safe places for everyone, and a lot of it because they're places where it's okay to learn, and you're going to be safe, and sometimes it gets them out of some of the chaos that they're dealing with in their everyday life. So a lot of people go to libraries, and they love going to school, our kids do, because it's an opportunity for them to have some place where they know that they're going to be nurtured, and they're going to get an opportunity to learn and maybe change the opportunity for their trajectory of their life. Olivia, I know you're working with a lot of volunteers in our schools, at TPS especially, to try to help with literacy. So how is that working as far as getting volunteers? How successful is that? And what are some of the challenges that you're seeing at Reading Partners?
So in keeping with everything that everyone has already shared, one of the things that is true about Tulsa that might not be true in a city like Chicago or New York City is we don't have a lot of opportunities to see one another reading. If I'm on the subway, I can see people reading. If I'm riding a bus, I can see people reading. And so one of the things that's happened since the onslaught of all of our screens is students don't get to see adults reading as much, just out in the world. And when people volunteer for Reading Partners, those are adults in their schools that are not their teachers, but adults who just love to read in the community. And so they're mentoring reading, they're being examples of readers. And so I think as a community, we could all move the needle a little bit just by being more public readers. When you're with your family, when you're on a trip, have a book and let people see you reading, let kids see you reading, ask them about books. One of our really fun activities that we're doing this year that Kelly mentioned is we're partnering with My Brother's Keeper. If you don't know about My Brother's Keeper, we'll talk after, they're amazing. But we have 2 barbershops in North Tulsa who are partnering with Reading Partners and My Brother's Keeper to have barbershop libraries, so that when students come in to wait to get their haircut, they don't automatically go to their screen. They can go over and get a book and read, and then get prizes in the barbershop. And at Precision Barbershop, which is right at 14th and Lewis on the north side, the barber is an incredible advocate for literacy. He taught himself to read as an adult, and so he can share that story of adult literacy with the students. And he told us that he came into the work with Reading Partners and My Brother's Keeper, watching kids just kind of come in and flip through the pages and say, I want my prize. And he made different rules in his barbershop so that you have to read it, and then you have to have a full conversation while you're getting your hair cut about what was in the book before you can get a prize. And so having those community partners, having adults influence the reading of kids and making sure they have books that represent them and their families and what they're interested in has been very helpful. But I'm excited to share with you, back to your first question to me, We already have 500 volunteers signed up for this school year, and we haven't even begun tutoring yet. That is probably the highest number we've ever had at this date. I would say even before COVID, when things were a little easier on all of us, we really need to be able to serve the students that are just bare minimum of what we would like to serve. We need about 1,250 volunteers. We serve in both TPS and Union, so if you're closer to Union and that's more convenient for you, of course you can tutor there as well. But it's 45 minutes a week. It's scripted for people. We provide training. You're in the school, being excited about schools, being excited about teachers. And we send books home with every student so they can help build their library. So the great thing that we're seeing right now is a real interest from the community to support student literacy. And we know Reading Partners and other programs that focus on the science of reading are effective. Last school year, 93% of Reading Partners students reached their growth goals for the year. That's the highest we've seen since before the pandemic. So it's an easy engagement for a volunteer, and it pays off dividends for those students and their families in our schools. It supports the teachers in the classroom. So we're excited about how we're starting this school year at Reading Partners.
Yeah, we appreciate it too. And, you know, hearing from all of our four panelists now, we'll ask a few more questions, but one thing I didn't hear from them was, you know, we really need to improve those test scores, right? Sometimes we get into, you know, as a society, we try to just hit a number, but we don't try to understand who are we teaching? What are their needs? And so, Kelly, you may be able to answer this question. We talk a lot about, you know, reading proficiency and reading on level, or there's a lot of different terms for it. But when we're talking about, and you just talked about growth, which is different from proficiency, can you talk just a little bit, Kelly, about what it is to be proficient in reading and what, you know, as all of you maybe want to say something about what are some of the things that may be a reason why we don't see as high numbers, say, in a Tulsa public schools, that we would see at a suburban high school or at a private school, why it may be a little bit different, but then what are the end results? What happens after we've had these kids in Reading Partners, after we get them involved in the library and in early childhood, what some of those impacts are to this proficiency that we talk about?
Yes, so proficiency in the simplest terms is students reading on grade level. And as Karen spoke about before, there's really two components. It's what's often called students learning to read and then reading to learn. So that first part is about students decoding, which I'm sure you've all heard of decoding, right? That's when kids are learning to put like letters and sounds together and put together words and build their fluency. And when we think about fluency, that's being able to read with speed and with accuracy and with expression. And then the other big part of it is comprehension. So do I have language comprehension? Do I understand individual words? And then can I put together words and understand their meaning together? So that whole picture is what proficiency looks like. And it's incredibly important. An important research statistic is that children who are not reading proficiently on grade level by 3rd grade are 4 times more likely not to graduate from high school on time. So it fundamentally alters their life trajectory if we don't kids reading proficiently by 3rd grade. And so that's a really big focus of the work that we do. It's why early childhood matters so much. We have great research about both CAP and Tulsa Public Schools and the work that we've done over many, many years with our 4-year-olds from Georgetown, showing that kids who have strong pre-K experiences are more likely to be reading on grade level, graduate high school, go to college. So those experiences matter a lot for our kids. I think also, just in terms of context for Tulsa, we have an incredibly diverse school system, and I think folks don't always realize what that looks like. John talked about our 34,000 kids. 84% of our students are economically disadvantaged. 36% of our kids are multilingual learners with over 68 different home languages. So there's a lot of different supports that we put in place to ensure that all of our kids are able to read proficiently. But I think the point of test scores are one way we look at how kids are growing, and I am happy to say that This year, we met the goal that the state set for us. They gave us 1 year. And we are proud we met the goal, and it's not enough. We know we need to do more because all of our kids need to be reading on grade level. But test scores are one measure. As Olivia mentioned, like we look at student growth. We set goals with our kids because we know that, again, there's lots of research about the efficacy of kids being invested in their own goals and how they're more likely to reach a goal if they actually know what they're working towards. And that's something over the past 2-ish years we've been working on, even with our youngest kids. Like our pre-K kids set goals every day for what they're going to work on in the classroom. And with our older kids, it's, okay, how am I going to improve in this aspect of literacy or in this aspect of math? What am I working towards? And that's a big part, looking at what kids are doing on a daily basis and what is the progress that they're seeing. So those are some of the things that we pay attention to in terms of proficiency.
And how is that, I know you talked about early childhood. Karen, at Tulsa, what are some things that you're seeing as far as helping set up the building blocks, it sounds like, for kids to be successful?
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to speak to, John, was the building blocks to proficiency.
I tend to steal good stuff. You know.
So 2 aspects I wanted to highlight. First of all, we believe firmly in promoting the parent or the caregiver as the child's first teacher. So we have a huge focus at Cap Tulsa on the family and how the families can help the children with their success in early childhood education and beyond. So we, at all of our schools, we have Storytime Tuesday, where we have guest readers, including parents, come in and read or sit and listen, and how you do what's known as dialogic reading with a young child to really promote literacy skills. We have lending libraries in all of our schools, and through generous donations by private philanthropists and other grants we're able to keep those stocked, and if the books don't necessarily come back, we're okay with that. That means the family is building their own home library. We are part of the George Kaiser Family Foundation's grassroots Talk, Read, Sing initiatives, Talk, Read, Sing, Play, actually. And we promote that with all of our families. Also, the library. We're all friends up here, by the way. We all work together. We promote the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. We make sure all of our kiddos are signed up for it. That's an easy way to get books in families' homes. And also the home language development. So it's really important for kids who are dual language learners, yes, of course, to learn to speak English, therefore to be ready to read and write in English, but it's equally important that they become fluent in their home language. And as you said earlier, that often means that they are going to be rock star bilingual learners later on, or multilingual learners. And we also have an app that families have access to with 200 or more books in multiple languages for families to engage with at home. If a family is only proficient not in English but in a home language, we want them to be reading in Spanish or in Pashto or Dari for our Afghan families, or in Zolai. So that's really important to us. And so that's a huge building block. And then I'll also just add that in terms of those high stakes test scores we all talk about at 3rd grade, there are many things that go in along the way to build up to that. And at Cap Tulsa, we actually rigorously evaluate our program. And we partner with the University of Oklahoma's Early Childhood Education Institute. They come into all of our classrooms twice a year, and they are evaluating kids. We also have ways to evaluate classroom quality and teaching quality. And if I could just share an example of expressive language, I think I can advance this and it should be working. Where am I? Yeah, so I just wanted to share one slide from this. So we are setting goals in all of our rooms to develop literacy with our teachers, and they're regularly monitoring student progress. So what you're seeing here on that little chart are our expressive vocabulary scores for last school year from fall to spring. And for the orange or peach color are 2-year-olds, the blue are 3-year-olds, and the green are 4-year-olds, and you can see growth from fall to spring for each of the 3 age groups. We're incredibly proud of moving the needle. It's actually the hardest needle to move of the 6 domains of early literacy that we teach and measure. So this is a way that we are measuring our own results, that we know we're able to send kids to the next system who are ready to continue their journey into reading.
All right. Thank you, Karen.
I just want to add that as we think about our students in K through 5, we're also thinking really critically about what is data telling us and what do our kids need. So a little over 3 years ago, we launched what we call Walk to Read, which is our system-wide intervention program in elementary. So we are using data on a regular basis to identify what does each student need in terms of reading skills. So everyone gets their everyday grade level instruction that is the same, but then they have this differentiated experience based on what the data says, that maybe Olivia needs to really work on her rhyming skills, and Karen needs to work on short vowel sounds. And so they're going to be in different teacher-led groups getting small group instruction on a daily basis to practice on those specific gaps that they have. And so I think to Karen's point, like, we are using data in really meaningful ways that represents what our kids know right now, not just what they're going to show up on some standardized test, but what do they know right now and what's the next thing they're ready to learn.
And then I think we've got maybe a couple questions left that we can ask. And I might go to Mandy on this. We've heard a lot about our multilingual learners. What are some of the tools that we're giving to families? Because if the family doesn't speak our language, part of the education process is also helping that family become literate and to help them along too. So what are some of the services and what are some of the things to help our multilingual, not only our multilingual learners, but our multilingual families as well?
Well, one of them is through the literacy program, absolutely. The way that we operate is, when we have a learner that comes to us, we'll give them an assessment and kind of see where they're at currently. And then we will basically look at, the goals that they have, what they're wanting to improve, what they're wanting to work on, how the literacy program might be able to support them. And then we wind up matching them one-on-one with one of our volunteer tutors so that our English language learners who come to us as adults have somebody who is then meeting with them. We suggest that you meet a minimum of an hour once a week for a year. That's just kind of our baseline commitment. But they are then meeting with this person regularly and, getting very kind of specific and individualized with whatever they're needing support with, whether it's, conversational English or looking for a job, figuring out how to communicate with healthcare providers or their child's school. So that is one very kind of direct way, that we can support those ELL families is with our one-on-one literacy tutors. We also offer 2 weekly conversation circles. One's online and one is out at Hardesty Library. But those are generally very well attended, and that's just a safe space for anybody, who's wanting to practice their English to come in. And it's also a great place for people to make connections with each other and kind of provide, some social support. So, and then, just the library in itself, we've got lots of ongoing programming that is targeted towards families, and we also have things like bilingual story times and lots of different opportunities for families to come in and be welcomed and supported.
Great. And I know for all of us as Rotarians, we believe in service above self. So anytime we have, an amazing set of guests up here that can help tell us how can we get involved with literacy, I think that's got to be one of our questions before we go. So Olivia, can you tell everyone how they can get involved? And then if anybody else, Mandy, Karen, or Kelly, if there's anything else that you want to add after Olivia's finished, we'd love to hear that too. So Olivia, how can we get involved to help with literacy?
Very easy. You simply visit www.readingpartners.org. I also have a sign-up sheet over there if you want to just commit right now. Courtney, raise your hand again. It's over by Courtney. Okay. Anyone who's older than 14 can serve as a tutor. You do not have to have experience as a teacher. You don't have to have been a parent. But those things do help sometimes when maybe a student is under the table that day. That's fine. But you also have support in every school site. So we are in 26 elementary schools in the Tulsa County area. And each site has an AmeriCorps member there all day, every day to provide coaching, to provide help with students. They'll retrieve the students for you if you happen to be sick or out of town. They'll help reschedule your appointment. So you're completely taken care of in the center, and we also provide a comprehensive 2-hour orientation once you sign up so that you can really understand the curriculum and the approach and what we hope for students to achieve when they're with us. Students do best if they have a consistent tutor. That's their person. That's someone they're going to count on. It's going to encourage them to go to school and be at school that day because not only are they getting instruction with great teachers, but they're also having their special relationship with their reading partner. But we're there to help, and we provide workshops throughout the course of the school year if you want to learn a little bit more about an approach to literacy. I would also recommend, just as I was listening to my friends up here, there's a great documentary called Right to Read, and it really does demystify some of the challenges we faced over maybe the last decade, 15 years in education, when different approaches to literacy became popular, and some of those approaches worked really well for some students and not for others, but the science of reading that everyone is invested in right now, in schools, out of schools, really is the thing that works. And so we're pouring everything together that we can into that work, and Reading Partners is a way to service every student, make sure they have access to that. Students maybe went through the same kind of curriculum, say at a private school and an under-resourced public school. If I go to a private school and I had the same education, I might have money or access to outside tutoring, something like that. Instead of blaming the children, blaming families, blaming public schools, people just had different opportunities to kind of work around literacy for the last few years, and now we're all committed, community members, us, to making sure that every student has that exact same quality and that they have people invested in their literacy. And each one of us can be a part of that. I would love for everyone to have a challenge to yourself that, is there one student in Tulsa County who you could help be a better reader? One child. Even if you have 6 of your own, you could still have one more that you're just committed to. Even if you're volunteering with a different organization, or you're coming into the school and volunteering where maybe Reading Partners doesn't serve, you're volunteering at CAP, or you're helping with literacy at the library, that each one of us would have a responsibility to our community to lean into this, because it doesn't only help students and families, although that's great, it helps Tulsa. It helps our future. So I encourage everyone to find one way that you can volunteer to support. And like Kelly said, even Reading Partners used to kind of be a one-size-fits-all approach, and Tulsa's better than any of the other regions, and I'm happy to tell you all about that. There are 11 regions in the country, and Tulsa is the same size as Reading Partners in New York City. And that's because of volunteers in Tulsa doing that work. You can also donate to any of us at any time. We cannot do the work we do without resources of time, talent, and treasure. So any one of us would be happy to talk to you about donating as well. Attend our events. Do your own research. Get involved in literacy. It's a challenge that we have to solve together, and we can do it through all kinds of volunteering and just engagement, and vote for education forward candidates who's valuing education, who wants to really make a difference, who wants to direct funding to teachers and educate. There are so many ways that we can get involved. And I could go on for a week. But well, I still have the mic, and then I'll give it to someone else. This is a side note. My friend Karen over here is an award winner for League of Women Voters Madam President this year. And that event is at the Agora Event Center on September 24th. And I'm the chair, so I'm encouraging everyone to come out and cheer on my friend Karen for this big award that she got.
Okay, so Olivia's a tough act to follow. But I just want to underscore, I think sometimes people get intimidated because they think, like, I can't teach a kid to read. I'm not a teacher. You don't need to be. Like, everything we know about reading is kids just need lots and lots and lots of opportunities to practice. And that's both, like, listening to an adult who can read fluently and model for them what the reading looks like, and it's getting to practice with someone side by side with them who can just read with them and, like, support them through some hard words and help them understand the plot. So don't be intimidated. Please volunteer, whether it's with reading partners or another way in. And then I think also, I'm thinking back to things like books and barbershops. We also are always looking for community organizations and for companies to support reading in different ways, to incentivize kids and families to engage in reading. And we all, our various organizations, are working with My Brother's Keeper and Impact Tulsa to launch a community-wide campaign around reading by third grade. It's in the very beginning stages, but I figured why wouldn't I mention it here? So we're looking for that kind of support so that we can do all the things we've talked about making sure kids have books in their hands, kids have a trusted adult to support them with reading, and how can we do that for all kids? So please get involved.
Okay, it's fun to be up here with friends. We've already said some of the ways. I'll add two more. We host a literacy event each October called Together We Read. It's part of a national effort where we all read the same book to young children on the same day and get to count how many pages were read. So that requires a commitment of a half hour of your time if you want to join us for Together We Read in October. You can just reach out to me at captulsa.org, which is also where you can find a volunteer form if you want to do more than that. And we've also put together a curated book Amazon wish list registry of early childhood books that are chosen by our teaching and learning team. If your company or organization wants to host a book drive, we can make that super easy for you.
Something that I didn't mention earlier, talking about ways that we can support our multilingual families. The library also offers a really incredible program. It's our after-school homework club, which is available at 7 of our locations. But that is also essentially, it's free one-on-one tutoring, and that's for 3rd through 8th graders. So, you know, and those are offered in English and Spanish. That's a volunteer program if you're interested in tutoring 3rd through 8th graders. That's available. And then, of course, the adult literacy program. If you want to work with somebody who is 16 years old or older, you know, most of the folks that come to us are working age adults with families. We serve a majority of English language learners. Probably about 75% of our program is English language learners. But we also work with people who are native English speakers, and those folks are frequently, you know, up against a kind of a different set of challenges. But the program's been around since 1977. That's not something that I realized until I was in this role, but we've been around for a while, and I think that the need has really never gone away. So, you know, it's pretty typical that we have a wait list of adults who are waiting for tutors. Like I said earlier, you know, if you've got an hour a week, we're very flexible. You know, people have all different kinds of schedules, but if you've got an hour a week that you can spare, it's a very meaningful and direct way to impact somebody's life and provide them with support. I also have an event to promote. So we have a new fund and awareness raiser. It's called Verses, VERSES, not the other verses. People are like, it sounds like people are going to be fighting. I was like, no, not that kind. But it's at Central Library on September the 28th. We take over the Tandy Garden and the auditorium, like basically the whole lower level of the library. It's a really beautiful space. But it's going to be an evening of food and drink, and we're going to have lots of local contemporary art. We have an incredible art auction that is coming together. Like, I haven't even wrapped my mind around, you know, some of the amazing stuff that we've got. And then we're going to have poetry readings from local poets. So Like I say, that's September 28th, and it's called Verses. And if you visit tulsalibrary.org/literacy, that's got all the info that you need, and I'm also happy to answer any questions or talk to anybody who's interested.
Okay. Do we want to open up for any questions, Daniel? Do we have any? Okay, so again, let's thank our amazing panel that we have here today. And when I was elected 4 years ago onto the Tulsa School Board, we went and listened to Tulsans, to people like a lot of you, and the number one goal that we came back from those discussions was reading proficiency. So it's not going to be something that just happens by happenstance. You can see that not only do we have amazing people that are working on this in schools and libraries, with our volunteers, with our early childhood, but it's families, it's everyone in the community working together if we want to change it. So get involved. Hopefully you'll talk to one of these ladies about how you can help, and we appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk about literacy today. Thank you, Daniel.
To echo everything John just said, thank you all for everything you do in our community. I'm part of a public education family. My daughter is in 7th grade at Edison. My son is in 1st grade at Council Oak, and my wife is lead counselor at East Central High School. So we fully understand the importance of public education, and thank you for everything you do amongst all generations of Tulsans to improve literacy and citizenship. Thank you. A book recognizing today's program will be presented to our partner in education school, Celia Clinton Elementary. Today's book is The Crayons Go Back to School. Upcoming programs, September 11th will be Josh Cantwell, COO of Grand Mental Health. We will also be joined by Larry Miller, the CEO of that organization. September 18th will be Corey Taylor. He's a former TU football player and current CEO of Taburn Music, who is working on the church across the street, turning it into a music venue to be known as the Dome. September 25th, we will be joined by Nathaniel Harding, who is the managing partner of Cortado Ventures, an Oklahoma-based venture capital firm. Upcoming events, Tulsa Area United Way Day of Caring is Friday, September 13th from 12:30 to 3 p.m. at Iron Gate. Volunteers are needed to help set up and tear down, to help guests locate and to choose items, and to help restock items as needed. If you're interested in volunteering, please register. The link is in your Monday message email. Social event at SOMA, which we learned about not too long ago, will be on September 19th, 4 to 6 p.m. Registration link is also in your Monday message. Today's side mic announcement is from Sheree Gardner.
First of all, I want to apologize for my Willie Vanilli tried to get off the Oklahoma. Everybody loves to hear my husband sing, but I do not sing at all. It's not good on your ears. Golden Circle Gala. The $125 gift or the ticket is going to be amazing night of the evening. And this is what I just found out the other day. Cedar Ridge just stole one of their top chefs from Southern Hills. So the food is just going to be absolutely amazing. You sit down, you don't have to worry about running out of meatballs, and you got dessert and all, there will be drink tickets. So I really want to push those ticket sales because we only help, we want to fill up the place and make this gala absolutely wonderful. And I'm really excited to taste really awesome food from a really nice chef. So we're going to start being outside after the meetings and before the meetings. If you don't want to go to Eventbrite, you can go to the Eventbrite link, and that will be able, you can get your tickets there. Sponsorships, you still need to go through Dylan, Phil, DJ, and myself. But the tickets are available, and then we do take cash, we do take checks, and we do take credit cards. So we'll start hanging out there, and we really, really look forward for you guys to be at that wonderful event. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheree. And for the record, I blame Kaiden for that incredibly intense and rousing introduction to the state song. Special thanks to this week's gold sponsors: Weeby Trees, Tim Knoll; Max Electric Supply, Jack McGlumphy; Coldwell Banker Select, Sheree Gardner; OK Ethics, Mary Lytle; silver sponsors: Associated Mortgage Corporation, Chuck Wilson; Bank First, Paul Baumann and Bill Miller; Clear Ridge LLC, Matthew Bristow; Southern Millwork, Bill Vogel; and bronze sponsors: Mr. Ed's Auction, PricewaterhouseCooper, Dan Simone and Kevin McManus; Regent Bank, Elaine Dishman and Greg Boudreau; and Rumble Drum, Todd Wade and Joe Mathis. Committee meetings. Following our meeting here today, Long Range Planning meets in room 231. Club Foundation Development will be in Parker Hall, and program volunteers will be in Thomas Hall. Like many in this room, I'm a big sports fan, and today's program led me to a quote from Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson says that he speaks to students quite often, and I found this quote that I thought made a lot of sense today. He says, quote, "I tell students that your education can take you way farther than a football, baseball, track, or basketball ever will, and that's just the bottom line." Thank you all for joining our meeting today. We are adjourned.